welcome back to Finding Common Ground with Heather and Steve. Today's episode is going to not just talk about the problems that we face as communities across the state and across the country, but we're going to talk about solutions and actually some pretty innovative out-of-the-box ideas that are happening right in Utica. So, Steve, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Mr. Vincent Scalise. He's the Executive Director of Utica Center for Development. As you said, Heather, this was a little different podcast today. It's more based on solutions and stuff like that. And I work with a lot of nonprofits, and I have to say that the Utica Center for Development has been one that comes up with solutions and makes things happen in our area. And I'm very fortunate to be able to work with Vin in a variety of ways. In the interest of disclosure, I am on their board as a board treasurer and a board member. But having said that, I think it gives us a different perspective. I got a different perspective coming in about what the veterans do and some of the other programs they do by coming on that board. So I appreciate that part. And Mr. Scalise, would you like to maybe give us a little background on how you started?
Sure. I started back, I thought about this idea many years ago, but we actually incorporated it as a not-for-profit in February 2008. It was like any other good idea comes out, it was based on pure frustration. I didn't like that there was a lack of services for like veterans and their families in the local area. Everything was Syracuse, Albany, and even them, there was waiting lists, etc. So I decided to start my own nonprofit, specialized in obviously in veteran services, but not closing the door to any other population in need. So we've grown to where we have youth programs, programs for people with disabilities, the homework, whether veteran or not, basically any need that could come to our front door, we try to find a way to a solution to solve.
That's wonderful. You're professional problem solvers, right?
We try.
There's a lot, but that's a beautiful way to look at it, because you think sometimes people really get stuck in the muck. Like they just look at the problem and they look at all the bureaucracy and the red tape. And Steve was telling me this story about, people just couldn't find a way to get places. And he had talked to you about a bus that was for sale. And I know I'm skipping ahead, but I just love that you guys talked about it, got it, and made it work. You know what I mean? It was just like you had this idea and you didn't let it get stuck in conversation. Because a lot of times there's people come together to solve a problem and there's so much talking and papers and more talking. And it's nice to cut through that and just do things sometimes and see the human impact. So I'm so excited to hear what you guys are doing. Steve has just been so excited about this project. So I'll let you guys, share it with the audience.
I agree with you 100%. Heather, too. I have a little internal rule that no meeting should take more than an hour. Because if we're spending more than an hour in a meeting, then we're not being productive. And I agree with you. I cannot stand people that just sit there and pontificate about an issue over and over again. Oh, what the issue is? What about? No, let's fix it. Let's not just talk. I have no tolerance to just talk about a problem. I do like to jump in and fix them.
That's why you and Steve get along.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're both doers. So in Utica, it sounds like there was a center that a mom started years ago, like 40, 50 years ago. It was her baby. It was something like her mission. I think it was called the advocacy, something with the advocacy in it. What was the name of it? I apologize.
The Family Advocacy Center.
Okay, so that when you think about that, that's something that is a legacy. And I know for Steve, when that fell apart a little bit and the building was empty, he didn't want to let it go. He wanted that idea that had started it to keep going. And so maybe, Steve, since that was you back then, I don't know how long ago it was, you can just give our audience some perspective on how this all started.
The days and weeks and months are running into each other, so I can't remember how far back we went with that, Vin. But Family Advocacy Center did educational advocacy, and they did, which is now care management, and we also did that. And we lost our funding, and the building would have just gone back to the Attorney General's, I believe. I think that's what the law is.
Right.
And we didn't want to lose that. And I wanted to see if we could someday get something back in there, something to get back in there to serve some of the, I think we served 235 families. And I wanted to see if there was a way that we could make that happen somehow again, or at least find a purpose for the building that could maybe, show legacy to Donna Wentz, who started that as a mom way back. And I was able to get it to Vin. He was all on board right from day one when I first presented, and then we had a bunch of meetings about it. And I was excited to get it to those guys. I thought it was a little different. It certainly wasn't veterans related, but it's helping in the community related, and that's why I thought it would be a good fit.
And the community is made up of all different people, right? I mean, my husband's a retired Marine. And once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine, right? So we, in our home, we have that veteran part to us. I'm in mental health. My sister has autism. I have kids with disabilities. So our community is varied, just like, everybody else's family. We're all made up of different kinds of people. And that's what I think when you talk about this project, Steve, and your eyes light up, because it's not just focusing on one person or one population or one problem even. It really has a lot of purposes that you want, that you guys have worked out so that you can help the community in a bunch of different ways.
Ben, maybe this is the time maybe to talk about maybe some of the projects you have coming forward. The one with the pool, the church, and things like that, so people have an idea of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're currently working on converting the former YWCA of Utica, which the original building closed down a few years back. We were able to purchase it, and we just were able to secure about $10 million in state funding to convert that building into 20 apartments, mixed use for not only veterans but people with serious mental illness. And the ground floor, which had the pool in it, we're converting the pool back to an indoor pool that'd be open to the general public for use. That will, we're hoping to start construction on that mid-November with a completion date of maybe 12 months from start date. But that pool is going to be a great public use, especially for those with disabilities to be able to use. It would be the only public indoor pool in the city of Utica, so that's great. We also purchased last December. We purchased the property right next door to our main building at 714 Washington Street, which is the old Presbyterian Church, which is actually quite a large complex. And we actually already started construction this week. The crew started construction on the second floor, which is going to be converted not only to a sensory room, but a recreational room for those living with developmental disabilities. So that construction already started. We're hoping to have that up and running in the next couple of months. Again, open to anybody that needs to come and use it. And the driving force, Steve, Kathy Caruso, members from the Family Utica Center that really showed me the need for that. And we were able to secure funding that was needed. Obviously not enough, but we're working on getting more funding. But we want to have those sensory rooms, the recreational room, and eventually 8 units above them on the 4th floor that will be specifically tailored to adults living with developmental disabilities.
Oh, that's just such a wonderful thing. I just recently helped collect data in my region, and one of the things we looked at was loneliness. So lots of people with disabilities feel very isolated. They don't have a lot of opportunities to socialize. Maybe the ones that everybody goes to are too overwhelming for them, or whatever the case may be. The idea that there'll be a rec center there, and that indoor pool, I love it. It's just like it's giving them those chances to be part of their community, and they don't have to, drive hours to get somewhere where they'll feel included. They can just, go in their neighborhood and be in their community. That's really nice. And the apartments that you're talking about, are they a respite situation, or are they like a long-term housing or transitional, or you haven't thought that far ahead?
We haven't hammered that down, whether it's going to be transitional, permanent, supportive, or respite. I mean, it might be a mixed use. It might be a little of each. But I agree with you 100%. We see that in the same issues across the board, depending in any population we deal with, even with the veteran population, that a lot of the members we serve have traumatic PTSD and other mental health issues. And it's the same thing. It's loneliness. It's the isolation. So we have a lot of experience with programs to bring people together, like the peer-to-peer program that we do. So, modeling, taking those models and just using the same type model that we already had success with just opening up our doors to different populations, those with, developmental disabilities, I think is a great start for us. And, this program that we have with the Century Rooms and the recreational facility is the stepping stone for the Utica area.
It just made me think of a story. I was working with a veteran, and he had acquired a pretty serious injury when he was, I think it was Iraq. It was either Iraq or Afghanistan. And when he came home, his next door neighbor happened to be a person with developmental disabilities who was in a wheelchair. And so many people walked past that young man on a regular basis and never looked at him. They saw his chair. They assumed he didn't want to interact and kept going, right? The veteran coming home was now in a wheelchair. And guess what? His neighbor could be the leader for him. He could show him things about his wheelchair. He could be like the specialist, the expert in it. And I thought, what a beautiful thing, because then the veteran had all these experiences that he could, convey to this person and share with him and feel like he was doing something meaningful and productive. And he had a relationship with somebody he might never have ever connected with before, but then now they had something in common. And I think that's the beauty of it, right, Steve? That finding the common ground where
exactly.
You just, people you might not think are like you, you find that little spark.
I wanted to go back to the bus situation. I can't thank Ben enough. I kind of found the bus and I approached him about it. And it was the next day you bought it, Ben?
Yeah, I think
it doesn't get any better than that or faster than that. And that's how it, I think it's done. And I can't begin to tell you, Ben doesn't maybe hear some of the stories, but I hear some of the stories of the people that have been using those buses, the times he's taken them to the hockey games and other events in the area. And it's a huge asset to our area to be able to provide it for that. And kudos for Utica Center Development for doing that.
I mean, transportation is a big issue, right? So how does that work? You guys bought the van or the bus, and then it's for people who wouldn't otherwise be able to be included. You guys pick them up or bring them places.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So Steve had told me that transportation was an issue before, and then he found I think it was Facebook Marketplace, a bus for sale. It was a 16 passenger bus. I went and looked at it. It was in really good shape. I negotiated, purchased it the same day. But we utilize it not only for veterans because it had a wheelchair lift on it, which was key. So some of the medical transports we do require that. But I know Calvin Center is probably our biggest user of it. We have a very good relationship with them. They'll call us anytime there's special events. Actually, they're using it tomorrow for one of their events. We'll be picking up their tenants from the link and bringing them to the event at Woods Valley and then back again. But when they have like autism night at the Utica Odd for the hockey game, we pick them up and bring them there for the Blue Sox game, whatever. So it's for any, when people call and say, hey, they need a transport, regardless of the situation, we do it. We just, Tuesday, I believe we had a veteran that was at St. Peter's in Albany that needed to get brought back to the Citron home. And we were able to send one of our guys out there with a family member, pick that veteran up, and bring them to the Citron home. So yeah, anybody anybody in need that needs something, if they call us, if we can't do it, we find somebody else that can. We turn no one away and no request down.
Let's just pause there for a second, because a lot of the people who tune into our show are also problem solvers. They look at situations and they want to figure out how to make it better. And sometimes we overthink things. I was in a collective here in Rochester, and we wanted to do something similar, but we got stuck in the middle of it, right? The planning stages and all those things. So if you had to give advice to our audience right now, when an idea like this comes in front of you, what made you pull the trigger so quick? Like, is it just you knew that this was a great opportunity? Like, I want to help mentor, people who hesitate and then they lose that moment. Somebody else could have bought the bus. It could have been gone if you waited.
Hesitation is the worst thing you can do. And I don't care if it's business or life. Even from my military background, the last thing you want to do on the battlefield is hesitate. Make a decision and stick to it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Make a decision. Don't be afraid to. I'll tell you right now, my insurance brokers hate me because I do things without I don't even tell them I'm doing it. And then they find out later and they're like, why didn't you tell us? I go, because I didn't want you guys trying to talk me out of it. Because that's what they'll do. Mm-hmm. Oh, the liability. I'm like, all right, isn't that why I pay for you guys? Isn't that why I have insurance? So I could take chances. So take the chance. Don't hesitate. Don't overthink anything. That's the worst thing you do. And I catch myself sometimes doing the same thing, overthinking something, and I'll catch myself and I'm like, wait a minute, why am I getting so worried about it? If it's the right thing to do, do it. Mm-hmm. If there's something, down the road that happens if it's a liability or, a consequence from doing it, I'll accept that because at least I know it was the right thing to do. So even if there was a consequence for my action, it wasn't because I was doing something wrong. It's not a consequence of doing something wrong or illegal or immoral. There's a consequence for doing what's right. And I'll accept that risk every day of the week. I won't back down from it. Like I said, we had one of our meetings with like our insurance brokers today, and they kind of laugh at me and they're like, all right, is there anything you're not telling us? Is there anything we need to know before we end this call? And I'm like, nope, not a thing. And they get nervous when I do that. But it is, what? That's what I pay. Then I tell them, that's what I pay you guys for, to clean up, my liability. But this is the right thing to do. So, take care of it. So you just got to take the chance, the leap of faith, I guess, is what you have to do.
And the people you serve when you do that, they're going to be your cheerleaders. They're going to be your endorsements, right? They're going to go and they're going to plead your case for you. And I've always had that idea in my head too, that it's better sometimes just to take the leap and deal with it, because you're going to learn something. Even if something happens, what did we learn? Okay, we pivot, we evolve, we learn from it. And if we're always scared, that's why, like the other day, this is a personal story, but I think it highlights it. My daughter was waiting for the school bus, and she has a disability, and she had a seizure, and she like fell to the ground, which is not her typical seizure. And she's laying in the driveway, and I'm holding her, and I'm trying to grab her med bag. No one stopped. We live on a busy street, and I saw all the cars rushing by, and I thought, I can't believe one person in my neighborhood didn't just slow down for a minute and make sure we were okay. It's like they're all worried about getting to work and, maybe they don't want me to stop. Maybe I'll embarrass them and they drive by, and I think, where's the human part? So I love hearing that you want to help people. You don't care if they're a veteran or if they have a disability or a mental health condition. People are people. And that really resonates with me. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
And like we deal a lot with obviously the state of New York and the federal government. And they're masters at red tape. I hate red tape. I'll cut it anytime I can. And we were just a lot of times, and Steve can tell you because I briefed the board of directors and they hear me talk, because like I didn't get an answer back from the state whether I could do this or not. I pulled the trigger anyways, and then as 99% of the time you pull the trigger, you get the answer 2 weeks later and like, oh no, that's okay to do. Well, I wasn't going to wait for you guys. I know it was okay to do. I'm not waiting for you guys to tell me it's okay to do. We're going to do it. And worst case scenario, they're telling you, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Too bad. I already did. You got to pull the trigger and not overthink anything. If you really want to help people, then you have to be willing to take the risks and do it.
Right. You could have sold the bus if it didn't work out, right?
Right.
It's not like it was a permanent problem. Yeah.
No, it was an asset, sell it off. But, I'll tell you right now, we get our money's worth out of that bus. We use it for a lot of things. It's every day we're taking people from workforce development to their job placements, and that's like, we do that as a fee for service, and that helps pay for the bus. So that's the other thing. You got to think outside the box. I was always a big believer that a not-for-profit cannot just stand there with their hand out, hoping the government's going to pay them. You have to think of other ways to have a revenue stream, and that's what we do. We have fee for services that we do, such as transportation for certain programs. We recycle everything that's possible to be recycled to get another, including old clothes, Christmas lights, bottles and cans, anything that we can find a way to make $1 off of. And that's the only way we're able to keep expanding. That's how we were able to buy the church, buy the YW, and now build these different programs, because we didn't stand there just waiting for the government to give us money or give us the okay. We went out there and found a revenue stream, found a way to make it happen, and that's what we did to make it happen.
That's a really good thing for the audience to hear too, because a funding stream can dry up. And if if you were only pulling from the bucket of funding for veterans and something happened, then what would you do? But you're being smart. You're doing some self-sustaining things, and you're pulling in other populations, and they have different buckets of funding. So that's really smart. That's good business. That's good for the community.
You have to diversify, and unfortunately, that is what led to FAC having the Family Advocacy Center. They did a great job at what they did, but when they had issues with that funding stream, unfortunately, it cost them their agency and their employees. So I never want to be pigeon-toed, as they say, to just one single funding stream, one single source of revenue, and I don't want to be solely reliant on the taxpayers either. There is monies to be made that doesn't affect the taxpayer directly, i.e. our recycling program, us doing fee for service, us renting out space that we buy big buildings. We don't need the whole building. We rent out the other space. The money we make from renting out that space helps us, keep the spaces that we need for our veterans, for our people with developmental disabilities, etc. Keeps that going. So you have to always diversify. You always have to think outside the box, and you have to think about how you're going to pay that next bill. That's always at the forefront of my mind. I love helping people, but at the same time, if I don't have monies coming in, I can't provide the services that we do. So I always have to balance the services we provide with the revenue to be able to provide that service, whether it's government funded, private donations, or monies we raise on our own.
That's really a good point. Steve, I think it's a good time to talk about some of the people that will benefit from this project, these different things that you guys are developing, because you live it and breathe it. You see the people are reaching out to you, talking about what the pool would mean, or if there was transitional housing or respite. And for our audience's sake, like, who do you see, and from our community, the IDD community, because I can already tell the veterans, it's giving them purpose. They're working it, they're doing it, they're involved in it. But for our guys, Steve, what does this look like for them?
Well, just about all the programs that Vin has talked about can benefit the IDD community, the autism community, and everybody else. And it's just like the pool. There's, like Vin said, there's nothing in the city. And there's people that call me, they want to know where they can go swimming, and they got to go way out to find a place, or they can't get in because it's not adaptable. The pool's not set up for somebody in a wheelchair or something. But it's much, much more than that. One of the reasons why I was hoping that Vin would would listen to some of the proposals and stuff that I kept kicking forward is because I knew he would listen and I knew he would act. And I see in what I do almost daily an issue with respite, an issue with housing, an issue with homelessness. I think I told you how that we have a child in our home. It's not even a child. He's 20 years old. On December 12th, he's homeless. He gets out of foster care December 11th because that's his birthday. He'll be 21. All services end. He's homeless December 12th if I don't have a place for him. And he's not alone. There's kids sitting in Wynn Hospital that are foster care that can't go anywhere on a temporary situation, a temporary respite. 10 years old, 92 days in Wynn Hospital. You know what the cost is to that hospital for that? It's astronomical. And I think if we had, like Vince said, maybe a multi-use situation where you can have respite, some transitional stuff, some permanent housing and stuff like that, it'll benefit many in the community that I see where they don't have anywhere to go. There's zero respite right now. I was trying to explain to Vin how OPWDD works with kids' self-direction budgets and all that kind of stuff. And while most kids in OPWDD have respite availability, they just can't get it. There's no beds. There's nowhere to get a bed for a temporary situation. If somebody's got a mental health breakdown and it's happened, and I take the kid in, he's 17 years old, maybe 14, for a weekend, I can't take him longer than that. But if Vin had some beds there and we had maybe tied into his peer-to-peer and his great clinicians down there, then maybe they could be mentors to those kids down there on a temporary basis, respite basis, or a more permanent basis. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity to address such a need that's not just in Utica, but across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about the respite idea or the transitional idea is such a great concept. And we used to do it. We called them like halfway houses, remember? I mean, if you're leaving prison or coming back from war, or if, all these different scenarios. Now, some of our kids with developmental disabilities are only with their parent. And they might even have limited school opportunities, right? So they only are learning from this one kind of person in this one kind of setting. And taking them out of the home sometimes and giving them that out-of-home experience where they're kind of almost forced to learn how to interact with new people and build different skills, and they get accustomed to, I can do hard things. I can go somewhere different and I'll be okay. Those are all things our kids need to know. It's an opportunity that gives the family respite. It gives them a break. But for the child, when it's the right setting, it gives them something special too. And it's not a punishment. It's not like you're getting sent away because we can't handle you. We both need a chance to breathe, and we both need something different for a moment so we can recharge our batteries. And families feel bad about that sometimes, but they shouldn't. Like, we all need a chance just to rest and regroup. There's David's Refuge in Rochester that's pretty big, and they do some things for caregivers. I would love to see that space work for caregivers in your area too, because I think we all need to know that that's something out there, something available to us, that we don't have to keep going forever with no light at the end of the tunnel.
No, absolutely. I agree with you on that 100%. It's if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of other people? And that's an issue that we see, and you guys know, we have a high rate of burnout, like with our case managers and stuff, because it is a demanding job. It is taxing. You deal with very difficult populations, very difficult individuals, and no matter how much you love it and how much you want to do it, there is a burnout factor. And if you're not taking care of yourself as a caregiver, how can you provide care to somebody else?
Right. And if you think this is going to be forever, there's nowhere they can move to, that's a scary feeling, like, okay, you can tread water for a long time if you really, really have to, but eventually you need to know that you don't have to do that anymore, that there's going to be a safe alternative. So housing for so many people right now is such a big deal. In the study that we did in Rochester, we found out that if you were a minimum wage worker and you were trying to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in Rochester, you would have to work 54 hours a week, every week, and never take a day off to afford that 1-bedroom apartment. And for people with disabilities, that's not really an option. Most people aren't going to be able to manage 54 hours a week every week, right? Like, with no time off. So this is a real problem, affordable housing. And I like what we are looking at it.
I agree with you 100%. And one of the things I've been pushing the local administration on in Utica is that people say affordable housing, this how low income housing. No, we have to think about workforce housing. Your average worker. Like they just opened up, as Steve mentioned, the Wynn Hospital, all right, which is in downtown Utica. We have a lot of vacant buildings in downtown Utica. Big developers come in and they're building the lofts and the high priced apartments to take care of the professionals, the doctors, the anesthesiologists, the nurses, like people that are making the money where they can afford those. But who's taking care of the individual who most likely, a lot of them do have disability, that are working in the laundry, working in the cafeteria, being housekeepers, candy serving, whatever the case, where are they living? So the workforce housing is a major issue. And I think the state of New York and the country as a whole is missing out on how they're what they're looking at. It's not subsidized housing. It's not, low income housing. We have to build more housing for the working individual who can't afford, like you said, without working 60 plus hours a week, 7 days a week. It's not going to happen for a very small apartment. We could build decent housing in cities like Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo for that worker and make workforce housing is affordable, not putting a drain on the taxpayers at the same time, but giving back to the community, because if they're living in the area that they working and they can afford the apartment, they're spending their just other income in the community, whether it be at the local stewards, whether it be at a restaurant, whether it be at the grocery store. And I agree with you 100%. We really have to address the housing issue as a whole for every demographic that we
100%. Steve, what would you say would be the number one thing for the kids that are in your house? Like when you think about this development, like what will you guys access probably the most, or it will have the biggest impact for the foster children in your home?
Well, hopefully we can do to fix the housing piece. I go back to what Vince said, the affordable part of it. Heather, we discussed recently a statistic that just came out that 50% of all foster kids are homeless. I bet were homeless at one time in their life. And I can see that with some of the populations that we have that come through our house, the teens that are going to need mental health services. They're going to need a place to stay. And there's no transition from foster care out into the community. So it tells you that they're going to I can see them being homeless. And so I'm hoping that, Ben continues to keep listening to some of this stuff. And I know that he would love to do more. I wish the local administration would help him do some more, because I think he can get it done with some of this affordable housing and some of that other stuff. And the other part of it is, Heather, you know me, I'm just like Ben, I'm out of the box, and I like to get things done. I don't like wasting time with stuff that we can't get done. So a lot of the projects he's working on, I think are effective and they work. And I hope that continues. I'd like to see another bus. I bet you we could fill that one up too, Ben.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of things. The pool's going to be a big thing. The rec center is going to be a big thing. And they all fill gaps. And you know what it is? And we're not asking, like Vince said it eloquently, we're not asking the state to fund all this stuff. Vince finding creative ways to do it. And if there's any chance that any of us can help as parents and advocates, that we'd love to help that part of it.
That's what communities have to do. We have to stop. I loved, Vin, when you said we don't just have our hand out, right? Like when you start building something, people come. Like that. There was a neighbor and that they had an injury, and one person was mowing and another person was weeding, and then somebody came by and said, "I'll make dinner." And then you think that's what community is. You see a problem and one person starts it, and that's that spark, and it snowballs. And then the state comes in and goes, wow, look at this amazing project. We have a grant that might help you with this. Right? I mean, instead of you asking for the whole big amount in one shot, you're like, I'll recycle these clothes and these cans and I'll do this. And they see it.
I understand too. Everybody struggles, unless you're, a multimillionaire, everybody struggles, so that's why we look at things. How could you help without putting a burden on your pocketbook as well? Everybody wants to help. I think deep down inside, everybody has some kind of goodwill but how do you manage that with your personal life and your personal bills? That's why we came up with ideas like, I'll take your old stained, ripped jeans. I'll take your old t-shirts. I'll take your old linens, your ripped up bath towels, your old curtains. We'll take all that and we'll recycle it. And we'll
you have to explain that. Other people might want to do this. So when you tell me that, I say, how are you recycling clothes? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, it's a big thing, and there's good money in it. That's just why you see they don't put those little bins up to drop your old clothes off for, fun. Like, we do have bins. We only have 20 of them, but we have them in Oneida and Herkimer County, and we're hoping to get more. But we take your unwanted clothing, your shoes, your belts, your ties. I mean, I think any guy could go into his closet and probably pull out 20 ties that he doesn't want. But what do you do with it? Give it to us. We actually have a system where we got pretty industrialized, but we have a baler, and we bale them, and we make 700-pound bales of your unwanted textile, your unwanted clothes, your unwanted sheets, your unwanted pillowcases, you name it, towels, whatever. We bale it, and we sell it off as textile. We actually, right now, we're getting 22 cents a pound. The last truck we just got out the other day was Tuesday. We had 48,000 pounds of textile on it time, so it was over $10,000. Well, that's
amazing.
Yeah, for one of our buildings, that's the monthly cost of a mortgage and utilities for like the church right there. In one truckload. So scrap metal. Everybody has a little bit of scrap metal in their house. They don't want to throw it out, but they don't know what to do with it. It's not worth them driving to the scrap yard to drop it off and go over the scale, whatever. Drop it off in one of our bins or drop it off in one of our buildings. We take that. I tell people, you clean out like my father, was a whore. You could probably find every size bolt and nut that you could ever imagine in old mayonnaise jars and stuff. Like, what could you I don't think he ever threw out a nut or a bolt. But you take all that, and there, a couple 100 pounds of scrap metal, and that, that helps us. We'll take it all, we'll cash it in. We take your old Christmas lights. People are like, what do I do with these Christmas lights? They don't work anymore. Give them to us. It's not worth your time, maybe because you only have a couple strands. It's not worth your time to drive to a scrapyard and make 19 cents on it. But when we collect them and we have hundreds of pounds of it, it makes sense for us to take a truckload over and make $1,000 off of it. But it's unwanted things that would normally end up in landfill. So not only are we helping the environment, we're keeping things out of the landfill, we're recycling things, but the money we're making off this recycling is going to help those in need. So
you're giving people a job too, right? Yeah. I mean, there's people who are doing this that maybe didn't have something meaningful to do during the day too.
And we utilize, the volunteerism. But we also hire so we'll get trial employees from like workforce development, and we end up hiring them. They end up becoming full-time employees with benefits. These are individuals that never had a good job with benefits, and they came through us through a workforce development initiative, and then they did so well, we take them on, and now they're not only supporting themselves, their family, but they have health benefits, they have vision, dental things. When they come in, and it's amazing because the insurance company comes in and brief them on their benefits, and they're like, really? I can get eyeglasses? Really? I can get done? You're giving them a lifestyle that they're not accustomed to, and it's off stuff that would normally go in a garbage bag to the curb. And I think that's why I get so pride in it, because we're doing this with stuff that 90% of the time gets thrown to the curb for the garbage thing.
I bet that has to feel good. And I'm thinking of our kids, Steve, and our population that we generally serve. And my goodness, what an opportunity for people across the country. Like, just to hear you say those things, it makes so much sense. Instead of waiting for the check to come, you can be doing something and making your community better.
And it helps around the world. Like with the clothing, goes around the world. That's why I always tell people, you ever see videos from, faraway lands and some kids running around with a Syracuse football shirt on? They're like, how's that kid? In Indonesia, how's he having? because they get their clothing from programs like this. They go through UNICEF and other World Aid agencies that buy this clothing to give to the empire. Sure, everybody's benefiting. You're benefiting people 20,000 miles away from you by giving us your old T-shirts that, sat in your drawer for 10 years and you never wore them, things like that.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, that's so cool. So we're coming up on the end of the show right now, and I want to make sure that we hit all the points that you guys wanted to include. So is there anything that we've missed? Anything that else we want to share?
I don't think so. I think we hit on everything. And like I said, it's the key to being successful is expanding, being a community partner, and willing to listen and work with other agencies to find that, like you guys say, the common ground to help everybody. But I think I've covered everything.
Yeah, if you're only talking to people who believe the same thing as you, or who look like you, or who act like you, then you're just preaching to the choir. Like when you want to maximize and magnify your impact, you have to bring in people with different perspectives and different needs. And I love what you guys are doing. I really do. And I think people could use it as a model.
It reminds me of a very famous quote from General Patton that I learned that when I was at Battle Staff School. His famous quote was, "If everybody's thinking the same, then somebody's not thinking." That's what he never wanted everybody in his immediate command area just to be, okay, yeah, sure, that's a good point. Like, you have to look outside the box, and you always need that different opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for the work that you're both doing. I hope that people are listening and they're thinking, how can I apply that in my neighborhood? Like, what can I do in my own backyard? Because the things that you guys mentioned are simple. There's a lot of old, dilapidated buildings in a lot of cities, and you can probably buy them for pennies on the dollar. And some, like you said, churches might donate things. The city or the village or the town that you live in, talk to the officials, and they don't want them standing there empty either. And if we can convert neighborhoods into places that are safe and viable, why wouldn't we do that?
Absolutely. Our main building that we're in right now on Washington Street in Utica was a former YMCA that when I approached the city about my idea to start an agency, they said, go look at this building. It was either somebody take it over like now, or it was going to get demolished and just be an empty lot. And now we have 18 units of housing in that building. We have all our offices. We have the full gymnasium for the youth programs. It's just amazing. Other than what would have been a vacant lot if we didn't do something.
If we're just repurposing something, like think about all those empty malls and plazas, and there's so many opportunities out there. We're just not using them, right? Like, so why not? We don't need to knock them down. We just need to like give them a little TLC. And now we're putting in the ramps, and we're making sure the doorways are wide enough, and we're thinking about accessibility. So then everybody can use them and enjoy them. So that's great stuff. Thank you so much. Steve, are you done? Because I feel like I started talking and I didn't give you a chance. So,
Vin, keep thinking outside the box. Heather knows me well now. I've been working with her for a while. She knows that I don't march to the same drummer as everybody else. So back to George Patton, that's how I think. I don't think like everybody else. And I think that's why I enjoy being on your, helping you guys out at Utica Center for Development. Keep doing what you're doing. And I'm confident you're going to keep growing. And when you do that, you're going to help a lot of people in this community.
Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. And if you like today's show and you want to hear more content like this where we're solving problems, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's how we get our message out there. The more subscribers we have, the more people who will see these podcasts and see the great ideas that people are coming up with all across the country. We enjoy doing this a great deal. Every week we feel like we're learning something new, and we're putting the stories out there because we're all about the people, and we're teaching people that they can be empowered. They can do advocacy a new way, and they can get things done in their own backyard. So until next week, thanks.
Continue the conversation by joining our Facebook group. If you're a fan of the show, please join our supporters club. subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your favorite listening app, but most of all, share it with your friends. Just one more click or comment can make a huge difference and help us to continue finding common ground.